Welcome to Medin Talks podcast, achieving success, social impact, and overcoming obstacles. I am Francis.
And I'm Stephen Chan.
And I'm Tammy Tran. For today's episode, we will be introducing Lan Ho, who has been crowned recently at Miss Asian Global as First Princess. Lan's mission is to advocate for more minority representation in mass media, executive positions, and leadership.
And I'm Michelle Sahai. Lan Ho is working on her newest startup, Fat Miilk. Lan hopes to use her startup companies as a way to inspire women in entrepreneurship and encourage others to disrupt the status quo. Now, without delay, let's welcome Lan Ho.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here on our podcast. We're so excited to have you here and talk to you about your business as well as your interest and mission in the Asian, in minority representation.
Yes. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
Great. Thank you. So my first question is, you received your doctor of pharmacy and stepped away from pharmacy to start your own business. Yeah. Something we admire about you a lot is about you taking the leap into entrepreneurship. Can you tell us what has that been like for you? What has been your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been in higher education for 10 years of my life. So after graduating with my doctor's in pharmacy, I ended up going the traditional pharmacy route and worked as a community pharmacist for 2.5 years. And it was something that I didn't necessarily enjoy. I felt like I wasn't really challenged the way that I kind of envisioned my career to take off. But it was a really great experience. And I learned so much in that process, like just being a community pharmacist. And, you know, at first when I got the job, you know, I knew this wasn't something that I was going to do like long-term, but I knew I was going to gain so much out of it. And I definitely went into it knowing that, you know, I'm going to learn this corporate structure. I'm going to learn how to multitask. I'm going to learn how to like customer service, how to keep my cool, like all of these things. Right. Yeah. And so I was just so, you know, I knew I was going to get what I wanted out of it, but I knew ultimately, you know, working for a big corporation and being a traditional pharmacist was just not my dream. And I think the biggest indicator of that was I just really didn't like the person that I was when I was a community pharmacist. And I think looking back on that, I always wonder like, what was like that one point that made me want to like jump into something else, you know? And for me, it wasn't really one specific point. It was just like, I just did not like who I was. And, you know, I felt like I was in like this routine and this ritual of going to work, you know, going home and then like just doing it all over again. And I didn't feel the collaboration and the excitement that I needed in my life. So, you know, even in while I was in pharmacy school and beyond that, I was always just, you know, super curious and always wondering like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? And so I've always like dreamed of all of these million different things that I wanted to do. And one endeavor that always stuck was coffee.
Interesting.
And I know, right? Because I think when you're in higher education, you're just consumed with coffee, like it's literally in my blood and I don't think it ever left. But and being Vietnamese for that matter, you know, I'm very proud of my Vietnamese heritage and I'm very always felt incredibly blessed to be where I am based on my family's sacrifices and, you know, where the struggles and the trials and tribulations that they had to go through to really give me this opportunity to even be a pharmacist and go to school and, you know, have a choice. Right. And so, you know, combining my love for coffee and wanting to do something creatively challenged, wanting to be my own boss, and then also wanting to represent my culture in the best light. You know, Fat Miilk is something that I came up with and actually incorporated in 2019 when I was my first year as being a pharmacist. I incorporated Fat Miilk. I thought of the name. I was going to do it, but I was just like slowly planting seeds until I was ready to really go full blown into this. And so, I talk about this story all the time, the way how I got my start, because although I started it back in 2019, conceptualized this probably, to be honest, in college, the way it happened, the timing that it happened, and I'm a believer. So I always say, God orchestrated this entire season of my life. And I actually ended up getting furloughed at my 2-year mark
Wow.
being a community pharmacist. And it's so funny because it's not funny, but I know how it feels to be furloughed. It's like the scariest thing. It's like 1 minute you have a job, the next second you don't, so I really sympathize and feel for people who go and, have experienced that, especially during the pandemic. But when I personally got furloughed, it was like a blessing. I was jumping for joy. I was like, I can't believe this decision was essentially made for me, and up until that point, like a few months up until that point, I was like really actively trying to get Fat Miilk up and going, because everything had kind of slowed down and I had the time to really dabble in it. And so, and so I got furloughed, and within 2 months, they asked me to come back 2 months later, but within those 2 months, I launched Fat Miilk, and it's been a never-ending experience and journey since. So we just reached our 6-month birthday last week, and so
congratulations!
Thank you. And so we're just super excited. I know we're halfway through the 1-year startup curse, right? So
yeah,
I'm excited for another 6 months and beyond. So
that's really awesome, Lan. I mean, that journey into PharmD, going into work, and then having to get furloughed. Man, I can't imagine having to be furloughed. I haven't been, but there's always that looming like monster coming over, and like, oh, I don't know when I'm gonna get furloughed too, because I actually work in education, and there's always those talks going on about being furloughed.
Absolutely.
But I'm amazed that you took that time to actually kickstart your business, Fat Miilk. So it's incredible you were able to do those things in 2 months.
Yeah.
That's
amazing. It's there's this thing when you start anything like branding or marketing related, they always say, think more, do less. And the thing is like during those 2 months, I actually met my business partner, and it was orchestrated by God himself. I'm not even kidding. Like we were just, it was like, I don't even want to go into it. So many like crazy details, but like we've already been conceptualizing this for so long. And within those 2 months, we just had to we knew exactly what it was going to be like, how we were going to launch, what it was going to look like. We had you know what I mean? Like it was just something that was conceptualized for so long. We already thought about it for years. And so it's just a matter of putting it into action. And both of us, when we met, it was just, we were just so mentally ready to make this happen. And so that's kind of how, we launched 2 months later, and it's been, insane. So
that's just fascinating to me. Like, for you to have everything done within those 2 months. Were there any moments in which you felt like you wanted to give up or go back?
No. No. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were definitely moments where I have no idea what I'm doing, to be completely honest. Like there are tons of moments, and I still have those moments where I am just like, how do I spend my time? Where do I put my time and effort where it actually converts to the bottom line, right? Like you really have to think about those things when you are just one person and you don't have the budget to hire a team of people. So it's you and your partner. There's 2 of you guys. You guys need to be cognizant of your mental health, in addition to like being pulled in a million different, directions. And so there are moments where I just feel really overwhelmed and just, just have like almost paralyzed in the amount of work and ideas and, just yourself, the pressure that you put on yourself. And so there are moments where I definitely am like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But it's so worth it. Like, I feel like I felt like this when I was a pharmacist and I didn't enjoy it, but this is actually something that like I own. It's mine, it's ours. And so it just makes it that much more worth it. And I don't think ever taking a risk going into entrepreneurship, if you go into it thinking it's going to be smooth sailing, then I think you're completely fooled. And you clearly have not done your research, or you're just, I don't know, just really unrealistic about how this approach is. So I definitely don't see myself going back. And honestly, the reception of Fat Miilk and Vietnamese coffee in the Chicagoland area has just been tremendous. And that really gives, us momentum to keep going. And there's just so much untapped potential that we haven't even optimized yet. So I'm excited about that.
That sounds actually really exciting, that you actually get to be in this industry and it hasn't been tapped yet. So I'm very, very excited for you and interested to see how your future is going to be like. There is one question I do have for you in terms of the 2 months that you started Fat Miilk. Were there any major obstacles that you had to overcome in those 2 months? And like, what motivated you to keep trying despite those obstacles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest obstacle that comes to mind, I would have to say, really stepping into this role. I think institutionalized institutions has a really big play on you. Like I was in higher education for 10 years. I worked for a big corporation. Like you have, you're valued, and your life is structured based on an agenda, a syllabus, like certain types of plans in your life, and, your job description, and, metrics and all of these things. And then now you're an entrepreneur, you started your own business. And the biggest obstacle is being able to mentally and emotionally have that register in your mind, and then realize that it really is up to you to push this forward. So if you're having an off day, that's, a day that actually affects you personally and the progress and productivity of your business. So I think sometimes I, one, I have to be easy on myself sometimes. But two, it's being able to step into that role and really own it, and be able to, really understand how you're feeling throughout that process and act accordingly. Like if you're so overwhelmed and you need a day off, allow yourself to have that, if you're just really, really on top of it, be proud of yourself about that. Like be proud that you were able to accomplish XYZ, and, and really be cognizant of your mental health. I think that's been the biggest obstacle. But I will say, to answer the second part of your question, is what's really helped me is support system is number one. And I would say I have the best, some of the best people in my corner. For an example, Fat Miilk, it's minority owned, but woman led. I am one woman out of 3 men, who is helping, you know what I mean? Who has my back in this, and we're all pushing it together. But essentially they trust, believe, and support in me to make these decisions and support me in whatever direction that I have. And just the support of the people around you, and obviously you got to believe in yourself, but just having that affirmation by, people who's been in the game, been in the industry for 10 plus years. It's just they're go for it. They encourage you, they support you. If you have any questions, they try to help you out just as much. And so, I think that's really helped me. And I would encourage anyone who's trying to step into the role of entrepreneurship, don't try to do it alone. There's a reason why support groups exist. There's a reason why, there's all of these women founders clubs and whatever whatever, because you need a team, and you need someone to be your sounding board as well, who just gets it. Right. So,
no, I completely agree with you in that. I think that's instrumental in starting a business or doing a startup at all, is to have a support system, to have mentors to help you and guide you into doing what you think and want your business to be.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you have that support system. Leading to that, there's like many small businesses, especially Asian-owned businesses, that have taken a hit during COVID. Do you have any advice for other young Asians, especially women entrepreneurs who are hoping to enter this industry, especially since you started your business while we're in COVID?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any advice specifically for this industry besides like there's room for everyone. If you're, if you have an angle and you truly believe in your angle and your message, I think there is room for anyone. But any person who's trying to start a business during COVID, I would just say I think there's definitely opportunities. I think it's just different, right? Like there's opportunities within businesses after COVID. It just looks different. And so I think people who come into this, they're, for example, Fat Miilk, like, yes, everyone's at home. They're not going to be able to come in and enjoy it in a coffee shop, but how are you able to still launch how are we still able to like launch a business and, communicate with our consumers and be able to have them believe in the brand, understand the brand, and be able to have all of these sensory elements going on when they see our marketing videos or whatever. Like there's just so many different ways to be able to attract a customer besides your traditional way of doing it. You just have to recognize what that looks like, and be able to execute in that manner. But I wouldn't be scared of a pandemic. I wouldn't be scared of COVID. I say, if you want to do it, I would say do it, but be aware of the current state of the world and the situation and be able to adapt and adjust your game plan accordingly. I wouldn't hold off on it. Obviously be smart about it, obviously, but yeah, I think there's definitely room. And the fact that we did launch during COVID, I feel like we were able to make a bigger splash. You know what I mean? So if you come out and you put a lot of thought into your message, your storytelling, the art, that goes into it, and you really focus on the, direct to consumer message, I think it's totally possible. And I think the pandemic situation can help your business. A lot of things were stagnant. There is really no exciting things going on besides like stay at home and quarantine. It was all a bunch of like really depressing stuff. And so we launched Fat Miilk, and we're all about culture and art and storytelling and Vietnamese coffee. And, we do it through our execution with videos and emails and whatever the case is. And people are like, wait, what, who, what? And so a couple months after that, we had Bon Appetit write a highly recommended article about us. And we sold out all of our holiday gift sets twice. So you're able to make a huge, huge impact. You just have to be able to recognize what angle you want to go at and put more effort into that as opposed to your traditional advertising or marketing efforts.
I think that was actually very good advice to give to other young Asians or just entrepreneurs who just want to enter the market. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the coffee market, right? Just in general, I think that advice that you gave was very, very important and essential for anyone who wants to start a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Congratulations for selling out twice. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What the other thing I want to talk about is I mentioned that you have a mission in advocating for the minority representation. So we're at this pivotal time in the Asian American collective experience.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with the Stop Asian Hate movement?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, first and foremost, I think that what we're going through right now is historical. And I think everything that's been going on is incredibly disturbing. It's depressing. It's sad. It's heartbreaking. And so, understanding that, especially me as an Asian woman, a small business owner, we almost feel in some way pressure to amplify our voices, right? But we're also granted that opportunity that a lot of people are not. And so, you know, when all of this was going on, we had a lot of people reach out to my partner and I, asking, are we doing anything? Are we rallying? Are we organizing anything, just from other creatives and community leaders? And so I was just like, wow, like, I was like, that's me, like, people would ask me that, like, this is new to me. Like, you know, they're thinking you have a business in the Chicagoland area, you know, are you guys doing anything to amplify Asian voices? And I'm thinking, like, besides being an Asian owned business, we're amplifying voices, right? But sometimes it's not enough. You know, people expect you to do more. And the great thing about that is that I want to do more. And I also feel privileged to be in this position, to have a platform and actually have people listen to what we have to say through the lens of entrepreneurship. And so during that time, you know, we met with a lot of community leaders, a lot of creatives, and we actually are launching an initiative in the next, actually this month, and it's called Not Us. And essentially what it is, you know, everyone's talking about what are we going to do? There's a lot of like reactive responses to what's going on, that I think it's kind of like a short-term fix. And so for me, when I sat down and like wrote this initiative, I mean, I was over here heated. I was, you know, there's so many feelings. There was like grief and rage and just, you know, just being just being emotional in general. And I think everyone has that right now. Right. But what Not Us is really about is like, let's get to the core root of what is going on in America. Right. Everyone wants to blame, you know, oh, it's Asian people, it's their food, it's the way that they look, it's their culture, it's their religion, it's Black people, it's their, you know, their rap music, it's this. No, it's not. It's none of those things. It's the ignorance and hate that runs rampant in American culture and history for centuries, right? So Not Us, to us, or you know, this initiative is really saying that it is not us. It's the hate, it's the ignorance, it's mental illness, it's gun violence, it's all of these things. And so Not Us is broken down into an acronym called the N is for nurture, the O is for organize, the T is for teach, the U is for unite, and the S is to serve. And so it's this multifaceted way of having leaders come in and being a champion for all of those, you know, departments per se, and then being able to push out the narrative that let's focus on what's really going on, as opposed to pointing the finger at minorities or Asians or Blacks or Browns or, you know, Indigenous people. And so, my experience, long story short, my experience has just been almost like it's been life-changing, you know, just being able to really openly discuss some of these things, and then have news outlets. We've been, you know, interviewed by the Chicago Tribune. We've had, I was on a radio show. There's, you know, local news outlets reaching out to want to hear what our opinion is, but also exactly what we plan to push forward. And so I'm excited about that, that people are, you know, excited to see what we have going on and what we're going to push forward. And they really want to just be able to amplify Asian voices. And I think for those people who are comfortable doing it, I think absolutely we're in a historical moment. You know what I mean? Like, say what you need to say, put your emotions out there. And so that's the kind of the approach that I've taken. And I'm taking advantage of it. So.
That's amazing. I'm kind of speechless right now based off of like what you just said about Not Us. I love the fact that you're pushing forward this initiative. As an Asian myself, as somebody who's Chinese Vietnamese, this whole Stop Asian movement has been very personal. So I respect the fact that you're doing this, and that
yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I totally feel you. And I think, there's nothing wrong with the Stop Asian Hate movement. There's nothing wrong with hate is a virus, nothing like that. I just want to be I want to confront America, right? Like, I'm not saying I want to be confrontational, but saying that it's not us is forcing people to have an indirect reflection on their thought process, right? Like, it's making them kind of have a little bit of accountability instead of, these passive kind of initiatives where it's saying like, oh, it's, stop Asian hate. Okay, I'm not going to hate. And then you think that's the problem, that's like the solution. And that's not it. It's like, okay, like let's really, how are we conditioned to think like this? And let's tackle the education system. Let's nurture, you know what I mean? Like, let's really get to the core root of it as to like why you think this way and why this is going on. And it's like saying that it's not us. It's like, okay, if you think that that's okay, why? And if it's because you learned it in school, well, let's go to school and let's try to figure out how to fix that,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just having like a more direct more direct but indirect way of telling people to really acknowledge the issue and then being able to take actionable steps to do something about it, as opposed to just saying, stop this or don't do that, because it's just not enough. It's not enough. So, yeah.
Well, I love this movement you are starting. My last question to you to wrap this all up, because we're coming up on time, is, has this made you reflect on yourself a lot? And what has that done really for you as an Asian woman?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. And you know what? It kind of started with the pageant, actually. And prior to doing this pageant, prior to launching Fat Miilk, prior to this historical moment that we're in, I would say that I was probably unrecognizable. And I think Dr. Francis Kong can kind of, talk a little bit about that. And he met me before all of this happened. And I was just a very, I think, mentally sheltered person. I didn't necessarily think that anyone cared what I had to say. I didn't think people actually valued my opinions, my perspective. And so with this whole pageant, it really forces you to have an opinion and be able to articulate and communicate your stance. And then from there, obviously now having launched Fat Miilk, you have to talk about your brand. People want to know how you start. You have to have a humanity aspect to anything that you put your name behind, because that's what sells. People want to know your why. And so that, I'm talking about that. And then with, this Stop Asian Hate movement, I mean, I'm talking about that, and people actually want to hear what I have to say. And so it's changed me in a way of like, just, feeling confident in speaking up, and just continuing to speak up and continuing to be an advocate for the things that I believe in. So it's changed me tremendously.
Well, I, for one, want to thank you very much, Lan, for coming on the show and telling us about your business, Fat Miilk, and also sharing with us your experience with Stop Asian Hate, just Asian hate in general, and then your thoughts on the model minority and being a representation for us, which I love so very much.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Lan. Also, as a young Asian woman, I think it's been super inspirational, especially to hear about the Not Us movement and the understanding that a lot of, I think, people in the Asian community who have come here across many years, many immigrant families, have viewed themselves as the problem, right? And not viewed systemic racism as the issue that's put us in a position, in a really vulnerable position. And I think that's definitely come to light recently. And I love the ideas of empowerment that you're really espousing. And I think even nurturing, I think, is a great word to use for the end. And teaching is also something that's been super important in a lot of the social movements that we've seen this year. I'm really excited to see where that takes you and your journey with Fat Miilk as well. So where can our listeners and viewers find out more about you and your businesses online?
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, Instagram. So our Instagram account, you can find us at Fat Miilk. That's with 2 I's. So FATMIILK. Yes. And then also, you can find us at fatmilk.com. And then my personal IG is She Is This with 2 I's. So SHEISTHIIS. I have a thing for double I's. I don't know. Don't ask me why.
I like it. I like the consistency.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode with Lan Ho. As you heard, you can learn more about Fat Miilk. That's Fat, F-A-T, and 2 I's in milk, MIILK, on fatmiilk.com and on Instagram, as Lan mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, and read about her in constant, different news magazines that have talked about her business and her success. To learn more about Imagine Talks, go to www.imaginetalks.org. Edge Interns and Mental Power Hacks support this podcast. Edge Interns sources the best interns to the best companies. Learn more at EDGE, that's edgeinterns.com. Mental Power Hacks is where you'll get life hacks to boost your mental performance, productivity, and success. Connect at mentalpowerhacks.com. Subscribe to us and get the latest episodes of Imagine Talks podcast. Achieving success, social impact, overcoming obstacles. See you next episode.